بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على المبعوث رحمة للعالمين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أما بعد. Dear brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to this new episode of Ask Zad, coming to you live from Zad Studios. And until we receive your phone calls, we have a number of emails that came. One of them is from Zubair. And Zubair says, nowadays, parents are teaching their kids, especially girl children, to learn self-defense like MMA, to protect themselves from the fitna. What's the opinion in the light of Quran and Sunnah? First of all, MMA, mixed martial arts, and it is a new form of fighting routine and a set of skills that are developed through extensive training. And sports in general are halal, providing that there is nothing haram included in it. For example, girls learning such a routine or such a skill, if the teacher is male, this is haram, because this is free mixing. If the teacher is a female, this is okay, providing that they're wearing the proper attire. So if they're wearing clothes like the judo uniform, this is okay. It's all female environment. But if they're wearing shorts or tight skinny trousers or fittings, this is not permissible. MMA includes grappling, choke holds, hitting the face, kicking, and the main reason for such a sport is to inflict as much harm as possible to your opponent. In Islam, this is not permissible. The most prominent feature would be hitting the face. And you can see that when your opponent is on the ground, you have his legs locked, and you're on top of him and you start bashing his face until he faints or surrenders. In Islam, Islam is the governing power. Sharia is the thing that rules our lives. We can't go around it. In Islam, as mentioned in Sahih al-Bukhari, the Prophet ﷺ prohibited striking the face, full stop. And he prohibited it when there is an exchange between two while fighting. So to initiate it, even if the other one is not fighting you, is even worse. And this is not something of dispute, because this is the teaching of the Prophet ﷺ. Even if you're fighting in the cause of Allah or in self-defense, you must avoid striking the face. It is totally prohibited. Now, what we see in MMA or UFC or whatever kind of martial arts or boxing, all of this is haram Islamically. Some people make and earn money out of that. This is haram. What do you want me to do? This is what the Prophet said, alayhi salatu wasalam. So, if girls or boys, they go to such classes and it's segregated, and they train for self-defense, while if there is a committee, they do not strike the face, and they do not intend to harm. So whether it's jiu-jitsu, aikido, taekwondo, kung fu, karate, whatever type of martial arts they're doing, if they avoid hitting the face and intending to harm their opponent, and they're doing it for the fitness and for the reaction, the reflection, and the quick response. There's nothing wrong in that, insha'Allah. Mehwish says, are Ayurvedic medicines halal or haram? They sometimes contain cow urine. So Ayurvedic medicine is taken from the Hindus. Is it related to their religion? Most likely it is not. If it has concepts of treating the patient while attributing the healing process to their thousands of gods or Krishna or to whomever, Rama or whatever they call them, then this is not permissible. But if it's just a medication known to be used by the Hindus or by the Buddhists or by other religions, as a rule of thumb, such medication is halal. The vast majority of the medication we are using nowadays is taken from non-Muslims, whether Christians or other denominations, because they have the technology. Therefore, being Ayurvedic medication used, this is okay, as long as there is nothing haram in it, relating it to their gods or to their healing powers. It's a medication, it's herbs, etc. And the ingredients are not haram, meaning that there is no alcohol or poison or something that is harmful. Now, the Mehwish says they sometimes, such medication, they sometimes contain cow urine. And urine is urine. People are usually disgusted by it. But in Islam, it is not an issue of whether it's disgusting or not, whether it's clean or dirty. It is whether it's halal to use or not, whether is it pure or not. And the most authentic opinion in Islam, that the urine and the poo of animals, birds that we are allowed to eat, they are considered to be pure. What does that mean? Are we allowed to eat dogs? The answer is no. Then the urine and poo is najis, impure. Cats, the same ruling. Pigs, the same ruling. Lions, the same ruling. Crows, the same ruling. Are we allowed to eat camels? Yes. Cows, sheep, pigeons, birds in general that are not like hawks and eagles and etc. All of these are halal. So we consider their urine and their droppings to be pure. And if there is a need to include them in medication, this would not make the medication haram, but you have to look whether it is medically sound or not, and hence there's no problem, inshallah. Kalthum from India. Can you raise your voice? I cannot hear you.
Sir, I have two questions.
Yes.
There is a scenario about ladies not completing missed fasts of previous years and got incurable or permanent disease. What if any lady who is around 50 or 60 years old and got permanent disease like BP, sugar, cancer, in which doctor doesn't allow to keep fast and she gives fidya for each Ramadan? But what would be the ruling of past missed years fast due to periods, pregnancy, breastfeeding, which she didn't keep except 2 or 3? Although she was healthy and had intention of keeping missed fast, but the intention was not so strong, you can say on-off intention. So what should do about those missed fasts? Fidya or just soba safar or anything else?
Second question.
Second question is regarding health insurance, not about India, but I'm asking about KSA. I know any kind of insurance is haram, but my company gives me an insurance card as obligatory. Sometimes I don't use it, and I know on the other hand that there is someone who is very needy and sick and they don't have any health insurance card. So can I give my card to that person so that he or she can go on my card and get treated? The doctor will not know. Will it come under cheating? Will I be sinful for that? Because my intention is only to help that needy person from that card, which I can't help from my cash due to my own limited salary. Please enlighten me about these.
Okay. Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. So Kalthum from India is asking about those who missed previous Ramadans and they did not make them up in time, whether out of laziness, whether because the excuses were legitimate and one after the other, as in the sense or the case of a woman who was pregnant, then breastfeeding and postnatal bleeding, and then Ramadan came, and then she was pregnant again, and it continued without having the time to make up for these missed days. So she has like 200 or 300 days missed. And all of a sudden, she became chronically, or he became chronically ill, meaning that he or she is not able to fast permanently. And the doctors say there is no way for you to fast until you die. You have this serious chronic illness that you will not recover from, and you will not be able to fast. What to do? The answer is that these 200 or 300 days, that person must pay expiation. And from now on, every Ramadan that comes, he has to pay the same expiation for being unable to fast. And that is to feed one poor person for every day that was missed. So these 200 or 300 days, she or he must look for same amount of poor people, cook food for them, and feed them one single full meal. And that would be sufficient, insha'Allah Azza wa Jal. Her second question was regarding medical insurance. She says that I know that medical insurance is not permissible. However, my company obligates me to issue or to participate in the medical insurance scheme, or the government forces this upon us. So is it permissible if I have a poor relative to give her my card to go and get treatment or to be operated upon by a particular hospital who would not ask whether she is the real card holder or not? So by this, I would help my poor relative and at the same time utilize the money that I had paid? The answer is totally no. Islam prohibits cheating. Islam prohibits lying. And you're doing these two things by giving what you were entrusted with, and that is your insurance card. Regardless whether insurance is halal or haram, it's something that was obligated upon you. And you had to participate in order to obey the law and not to be fined, not to be arrested, not to be sacked from your job. So you have justification for that. What you do not have is the justification for cheating the insurance company, cheating your company, cheating the government by giving this card to someone else. And that person would say, yes, my name is Kalthum. And he has a long beard probably, and he's a man. And they say, no problem. And they take the card and they charge it to the insurance company. This is lying. And Allah prohibits collaborating and cooperating on vice and sin. And this is definitely one of that. So I hope this answers your question. Muhammad says that there is a couple on Instagram with loads of followers who knowingly or unknowingly are promoting evil in the name of halal romance. They post their photos and videos. The woman wears the niqab and show their private life. The man sings, the woman jumps, and so on. And when reminded, they say that there is no problem with that, for it is halal way. Unfortunately, many young practicing Muslims are fooled and they follow them and they watch it. So what's the ruling? Islam is based on bashfulness. It's based on al-haya. The Prophet said, alayhi salatu wasalam, Iman, meaning the belief, is 70 plus branches. The highest is La ilaha illallah. The lowest is removing obstacles that are harmful from people's way. And bashfulness is part of Iman. And the Prophet ﷺ saw a man talking to his friend, telling him, come on, don't be shy. Try to be blunt, try to be straightforward, try to be courageous. Being shy, being bashful is not befitting. So the Prophet ﷺ said to him, leave him, for bashfulness brings only goodness. Al-haya'u la ya'ti illa bi khayr. Bashfulness brings only goodness. Now, if you show these Instagram posts to imams of masjids, to scholars of Islam, to prominent da'is, and you see what they're doing, singing, acting without any restrictions, the woman, even if she's wearing the niqab, doing moves and things that are not befitting of a Muslim woman to do in public. Can she do what she does on the streets or on the theater? She says, no, definitely not. Why not? She says, this is not normal. So what you're doing in Instagram and being followed by 100,000, 500,000, few millions is even worse. So what they're doing is actually tarnishing the reputation of Islam. As a man and a wife, you between yourselves, you can do whatever you want. The sky is the limit. Nobody says anything wrong about that. What's wrong is when you come and do it in public. And imagine if someone gives you the evil eye and say, whoa, they're so in love. Wow. And immediately something bad happens because of that. Why are you doing such things? Most likely they are fame seekers. You get people stripping on Instagram. You get people eating weird things on Instagram. You get people jumping and harming themselves on Instagram. Why? Because they want fame. And fame seekers usually end up in hell unless Allah has mercy over them, because they do things that tarnish their religion and their reputation. And I always give you this story that a man was captured in the Hajj season trying to put some human waste on the Kaaba. So they captured him before he spoiled the Kaaba. And they took him to the judge after beating the heck out of him. And the judge asks him, Subhanallah, what were you thinking? Aren't you a Muslim? He said, yes, I am a Muslim. So why then were you trying to spoil and tarnish the Kaaba with dirt and filth and najas? He said, I wanted to be remembered by the people, and I wanted them to mention my name even if they curse me. So they would say, oh, so-and-so, may Allah curse him. And he becomes famous and popular, even through being cursed. So seeking fame, even if someone has a long beard of a woman, or a woman wearing niqab, this doesn't mean a thing. So many deviant and evil people have long beards. And this doesn't mean that they are pious or righteous. What counts is their actions. Allah Azza wa Jal told us, and the Prophet ﷺ told us in Sahih Imam Muslim, that Allah does not look at your physique and how much you possess, your wealth. Rather, Allah looks at your hearts and your actions. And these actions that are being done by this couple in Instagram or wherever, this is totally against Islam, and it's not befitting for a Muslim. The following question is a little bit technical, and a lot of the Muslims ask about it, and I'm told that we have a short break. So I think, and I believe that it is best that we delay it after the break. So stay tuned, and inshallah, we'll be right back.
Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today I'm going to talk about the book Interactions of the Greatest Leader. Abu Hurairah, may Allah be pleased with him, said, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, no one's wealth helped me as much as the wealth of Abu Bakr helped me. After which Abu Bakr began to weep and say, and is my life and wealth for anything besides you, O Messenger of Allah? This narration shows the level of etiquette and humbleness that Abu Bakr, may Allah be pleased with him, had in the presence of the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. For he likened himself to a slave of the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam by saying that his wealth was only for the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as well as his soul and self. This comes as no surprise, for the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has more right on the believers than themselves. He, may Allah be pleased with him, spent his wealth in the cause of Allah, and he consoled the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam through his own self. So the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam recognized that for him and said, in order to build his stature and to remind the ummah of his virtues, no one's wealth helped me as much as the wealth of Abu Bakr helped me. Among the benefits of this narration, it is important to keep good manners and humbleness in the presence of the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Thanking someone who has bestowed some favor on you, as well as supplicating for them, is part of having good manners. Reported by Al-Bukhari, reported by Al-Tirmidhi and Ibn Majah. Albani ruled it authentic in his book Sahih Al-Jami'. The explanation of As-Sindi on the book of Ibn Majah, and At-Taysir Bisharh Al-Jami' As-Saghir.
Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. A brother says, after having intimate relations with my wife, do we have to change our bed sheets each time and wash them? We do not use condoms, so fluid from me will get on the sheets, either semen or pre-seminal fluid, or the fluid will be from my spouse. I read on Islam Q&A that if madhi is on the sheets, it is junub. But if it's many, it is not. But doesn't madhi always come out before many? Please clarify. This issue is an issue of dispute since long time. But the vast majority of Muslim scholars, they look at the evidences. What is the evidence? First of all, is many, and many is semen or sperm. So is many or semen, is it pure or najis? What comes out of a person is either urine, and this is najis, or madhi, which is the prostatic fluid, and this is also najis. Usually it comes when there is intimacy or flirting with the spouse. And there is wadi, and this is yellowish, a little bit thin, that comes usually after urinating, or when carrying something that is heavy, or when it is extremely cold. And in all of these three are najis. And then we have semen. And this is for men and women. However, women have something extra, which is the continuous vaginal discharge, which is an issue of dispute. In the most authentic opinion is that it is not najis and it does not nullify wudu. It is more or less like sweat. So when we come to the issue of semen, many, we have a hadith which is authentic that Mother Aisha narrated. May Allah be pleased with her. She said that whenever there are traces of semen on the garment of the Prophet ﷺ, if it is dry, I would rub it off with my fingernail. Which means that if it's hard substance, rubbing it off does the job. And if it's wet, I would wash it. Now, scholars from this hadith, they learned that semen is pure, because whenever there is an impurity, rubbing it off does not make the surface or the garment or the cloth pure. You have to wash it. But when she told us that rubbing it off does the job, this meant that semen is pure. Now, how did this semen reach that area, that garment? Was it mixed with pre-seminal fluid, madhi? Was it mixed with his spouse discharge? This is something we do not have knowledge of, but we have the basic knowledge. That is, whenever there are such discharges on your bed sheet mixed with semen, then this is pure. Because we don't have details of what Mother Aisha did, may Allah be pleased with her, and the content of what she rubbed off. And hence we assume that it is sufficient to be removed, and if not removed, it is still pure, regardless of what was mixed with it. And this is the most authentic opinion. So whether you have it on your bed sheet, whether you have it on your clothes, it is pure. Is it disgusting or not? Definitely. But it doesn't affect the validity of your salat if you have it. Would it be recommended to wash it? Yes, sure. But again, it is not a determining factor whether your salat is accepted or not, because Mother Aisha told us that she used to rub it off the Prophet's ﷺ garment. Abu Yusuf from Saudi.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
الحمد لله السلامة. كيف حالك شيخ؟
بارك الله فيك، حياك الله أخي.
Sheikh, I have a question, two questions in fact. One question regarding property, ancestral property. Father of 5 sons and 1 daughter, he left huge property. So 2 sons were not living in the house, and 1 sister got married and gone away. So 3 brothers are there. So they sold the property, everything. Then they died too. Then their sons, children, they sold all the property, and they did not give the shares to the other 2 sons, sons' property. So likewise, who is responsible for this one?
The father is alive or dead?
No, all 5 brothers were died. Only two brothers, their children did not get the proper share, and 1 sister of them, her children, did not get the proper share, which cost millions, in those days. Now still maybe it's $1 billion now in India. So now who is responsible? Because their father died, all 5 brothers are dead. The children, one of them is died, and the others are alive. So who is responsible for the debts of their fathers? Sons, they have to pay the debts of their fathers.
Okay. Any more question?
Second question is, in Tahajjud Salah, when we prostrate in the sujood, do we in the Salah 8 rakats, so we have to say dua, or Subhana Rabbiyal A'la is enough?
Okay.
That's all. Even in Ruku also, it says Subhana Rabbiyal Azim wa bihamdi, then this is enough, or something else more?
Okay, Abu Yusuf.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, Hagi. Abu Yusuf's question about the distribution of the property and wealth of a deceased person. It seems that 3 brothers who used to live in the property deprived their other siblings, who were 2 brothers and a sister who got married and they were living elsewhere. They deprived them from their inheritance. I don't have knowledge of this. Why didn't the brothers complain? Why didn't the 2 brothers and the sister go to court? Was there a settlement or not? Hypothetically speaking, if there was nothing, and it's simple, straightforward transgression from the 3 brothers living in the house, they took everything that their father left behind, millions, now may reach billions, Allah knows, and they sold it, dealt with it, distributed it between them 3, and deprived the other 3 from it. Now they're all dead, and the children remain. If the children of the transgressors, of the wrongdoers, want to rectify and correct it, then this is okay. If they don't want to rectify and correct the mistakes of their parents, and the other cousins have documents to prove that they stole the money from their fathers, that they did not fear Allah in distributing the wealth and property, they can easily take them to court. Most likely, because they're asking this question, they have nothing. They don't have any documents. And in this case, you don't have a case. You can't do anything except make dua to Allah Azza wa Jal to avenge your rights and to ask Allah to either punish them for what they had stolen, or that Allah would compensate you with other means. They have committed one of the most heinous sins and forms of transgression. When you deprive someone from his God-given right, the inheritance was not divided by people. it was divided by Allah Himself in the Quran in chapter 4. So it was Allah Azza wa Jal who gave each and every one of the heirs their share and portion of the inheritance. To come and deprive them from it, this is a major sin that Allah would punish them in hellfire because of that. Now the children, if they know that their fathers did such a sinful act, yet they shrug their shoulders and they don't want to change it. And they say, status quo is nice. My cousins, it's their problem, it's not mine. Well, they will also be held accountable on the Day of Judgment. May Allah Azza wa Jal protect us and save us all. As for his second question, Abu Yusuf, in tahajjud, in voluntary prayers, or in fard prayers, if you are doing sujood, the mandatory basic thing for you to say is Subhana Rabbi al-A'la wa bihamdih. Once is the minimum, 3 is the right thing to do, the sky is the limit. This is sufficient. Now if you want to add some dua, this is your own right. So you can say it 3 times and say Allahu Akbar and sit. And you can say Subhana Rabbi al-A'la 3 times, and then you may say different dua. رب اغفر لي ارحمني عافني اجبرني ارزقني ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا وذرياتنا قرة أعين ربنا آتنا whatever you want to ask Allah Azza wa Jal, you can do that, and the sky is the limit. But if you want to restrict yourself only to the mandatory dhikr and say Subhana Rabbi al-A'la wa bihamdih 3 times, and likewise in ruku' Subhana Rabbi al-Azim wa bihamdih 3 times, 5 times, 10 times, whatever, and without increasing or without adding, that is, without adding any dua afterwards, this is totally legit and permissible. A sister says, it's been about 50 days since I had a late miscarriage. I'm still bleeding. When do I stop praying again? The answer for this first portion of the question, first of all, we have to look at the miscarriage. If a woman aborts or miscarriages her pregnancy like before 80 days, then the blood that is coming out, this is considered nothing. It's not postnatal bleeding, and hence she should pray, fast, and offer wudu the moment the adhan is given. And the blood is najis, but she does not refrain from fasting, praying, or even intercourse with her spouse. If the pregnancy that was miscarried 120 days old or more, this is definitely postnatal bleeding. Between 80 days and 120 days, we have to look at the fetus that came out. If it had the features of a human being, arms, legs, and a head, then it is postnatal bleeding. If it's only pieces of flesh and meat, then this is blood that is not part of the postnatal bleeding, and she has to fast, pray, and the rest of that. Her following question says, okay, what about if it's postnatal bleeding? If it's postnatal bleeding, then the max for it is 40 days. If she becomes pure before that, she has to perform ghusl and pray. But if the blood comes back again within the 40 days period, she has to refrain and consider that to be postnatal bleeding, and so on. Once the 40th day is due, she performs ghusl. Even if the blood is coming out, this becomes a blood that is facet, that is not part of the postnatal bleeding. Her second part of the question says, I started to pray after 40 days. Now, this is subjective to whether it is postnatal bleeding or not. I went in hospital today and they said I still have some placenta left inside. They have to operate to remove it. They said I'll be bleeding for few more weeks. How should I pray and when do I stop? What if I start my menses while I'm bleeding? In this case, she is to be treated as a mustahada, and the blood that's coming out is considered to be istihada because it's continuous. A woman cannot have her menses more than half of the month. So 15 days is the max. If it continues, she has to perform ghusl and pray and consider that bleeding to be dam fasad, damun fasid, which is not part of her menses or postnatal bleeding, but it is just like a wound. Now, if she does this operation, the doctors would most likely tell her that this is not your menses and that this is a bleeding due to the operation. And hence, she has to pray her 5 daily prayers, performing wudu after each adhan, not before the adhan. And she's considered to be mustahada, and this is called istihada when the blood is continuous and it's not her menses. What happens if she does get her menses through these weeks of bleeding? In this case, her menses would be recognized by certain characteristics: the change of color and smell of the blood, the back and stomach aches, and she knows her usually time of the month where she gets her menses. Then she should consider this to be part of her menses, the specific 6 or 7 days, and then she continues to be following the rules of istihada as before. Nahid says, I wear earrings that does not hang on earlobes, rather they are placed over it with hooks behind. They move over the earlobes. While doing wudu, I make water flow over them. I'm unable to imagine this. See, if a person's earlobes are here, this is eating. When you want to wipe over your ears, you don't wash. You don't run the water. You simply do this. So your index finger inside, your thumb is outside, and you do this. That's it. Job done. No need to fill your ears with water like some people think. If your earring is like a hook, it's like this. So I don't know if you can see this, but my ear is not that beautiful. So if it's like a hook, so again, you have to wipe the inside and whatever appears from the outside. And that is sufficient. You don't have to take your earrings, which is a hook-like, out completely to do this. That would suffice, because wiping is not like washing. Wiping is to make things easy. Some people, when they wipe over their heads, they do this 3 or 4 times until the head is soaked and totally wet. This is wrong. They said, no, this is more cleaner. And this is wrong. Allah Azza wa Jal made the wiping so that it is easier for you and not to get sick. And the same thing goes with your earrings. Sajid says, Sheikh, should we ascribe ourselves to the Salaf and call ourselves Salafi, as this path is the correct path, and also to distinguish ourselves from Ahlul Bid'ah? This depends. Now, the general trend, Huwa sammakumul muslimin. This is a verse in the Quran. It is Allah who called you Muslims. So when someone comes to me and says, Sheikh Asim, what are you? I'm a Muslim. I say, yeah, I know. What kind of a Muslim? What do you mean by what kind of a Muslim? He said, yeah, we have Sunnis, we have Shi'i. So I said, I'm a Sunni. So what kind of a Sunni? So where are you going at? He said, yeah, because we have Sufis, we have Super Sufis, we have Hanafis, Maturidis, Ash'aris. I said, I'm from Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. So, okay, what kind of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah? Come on, you're wasting my time. I said, no, we have to know. No, you don't have to know. I'm a Muslim, full stop. Now, the trend is becoming that, who are you? I said, I'm a Salafi. Okay, what kind of a Salafi? What kind of Salaf are you following? Because we have Salafis, we have super Salafis, we have Jihadi Salafis, and they confuse people. And they won't be happy with you, because some Salafis, if you don't follow their 4 or 5 allama or samaha, then you're not a true Salafi, because you're not on the manhaj. And if you follow the Quran and Sunnah, follow Bin Baz, Ibn Uthaymeen, still you have to refine your aqeedah, your manhaj. Otherwise you are an innovator. This is totally wrong. Going around saying, my name is Asim al-Salafi, and or al-Salafi al-Athari. And they add labels, and this is part of sectarianism. This is taking parties and abiding by it. This is dividing the ummah. There is no need for that. A Salafi, a true Salafi, is a person who's a Muslim with a clear aqeedah that follows the aqeedah of Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah, of the Salaf. But the way that people are using it now, it's being abused. And Sheikh Ibn Uthaymeen says that this is not permissible, and this is part of sectarianism as practiced nowadays. Aisha says, when does the urine of an infant becomes najis or impure? Is there a difference between boys and girls? Urine of boys and girls, men and women, is always impure. The only difference would be in differentiating between a male infant who did not consume solids, food. This is the only difference. So if we have a girl, a female infant that urinated, we have to wash this. A male urinated, we have to wash this. An infant boy, male, who only suckles, who only is breastfed, doesn't eat food, solids. If he urinates, we do not have to wash it, squeeze it, and wash it again. Simply just pour water over it. And this is sufficient. And this is the hadith where the Prophet ﷺ ordered that sprinkling and pouring water over the infant male urine is sufficient, providing he does not eat solid foods. And does not eat solid foods, meaning that he does not wish, when he sees bread or food, he doesn't want to go and eat. This is different, because he might be suckling, and if you give the child a piece of bread, push it down his throat, he eats it, but he doesn't look for it or ask and request for it. So this is the only difference, and Allah Azza wa Jalla knows best. Noor Ali says, can somebody buy a bulk of gold and sell it in installments? The answer is no. Gold and silver and currency must be sold and bought simultaneously. Give and take. I cannot sell you a gram or a kilogram of gold in installments. I cannot give it to you, okay, sold for 20,000 euros. You can bring them after half an hour. No. After dhuhr. No. It has to be simultaneous. Give and take. So this is not permissible. Naseem says, can a Muslim woman wear sari, a traditional clothing which is common in India, if this sari does not expose her belly and part of her stomach and back? If it's just over the normal clothes and it's only between women, this is permissible. Otherwise, it is prohibited. A sister says, her husband cheats on her and she has a boy from him. He confessed 3 times, and she doesn't love him anymore. And what can she do? Is she advised to seek divorce? If it is proven and the boy confessed that he, throughout her 1-year marriage or 10 months marriage, he used to cheat on her and commit zina, she has all the right to ask for divorce if she sees that their marriage is going to a dead end. A sister says, I have started wearing the hijab, and she has pictures before wearing the hijab all over the place, on Facebook, on laptops of others and classmates. What should she do? Personally, I believe that going to them and talking to them about it would only make things worse. Khalas. As long as you're wearing the hijab, whatever you can remove on your own without stirring the problem or bringing their attention to it, do it. Otherwise, if you bring their attention to it, they will keep a copy and they will always say, oh, this is the hijabi woman. But if you neglect it, let it go, inshallah, it will be forgotten. Fajr says, I want to distribute copies of Hisn al-Muslim on behalf of my deceased father. Will it benefit him? Yes, it will definitely benefit him with the grace of Allah Azza wa Jal. And finally, Sumayya says, scholars say that even if the effect of the impurity disappears from a place, it can be transferred if touched with wet hands. But hands show no sign of impurity. How is this possible? Yes, if you have urine on this table and it dries out, but the impurity is there, it still exists. If my hands are wet and I touch it, my hands become najis and impure because you did not wash the area. Even if there are no physical signs, the impurity is still there, and Allah Azza wa Jal knows best. This is all the time we have. Until we meet next time, same time next week, I'll leave you fi amanillah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi.